So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the RGM podcast with me, Carl Maloney, that guy from RGM. And today, ladies and gentlemen, joined by, well, you don't, I don't need to introduce John Robb. He's out and about in Manchester now. Where are you, in home, you say?
Yeah, just in home. Yeah, because I don't like staying in outside my home all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've had to do loads of stuff this morning. I've had to go and do a lecture at the university and sign some books at Piccadilly. So it's like an errands day between tour dates.
Oh, yeah. Just getting little bits done. Fannying about, just getting loads of little bits out of way. I think it's called.
Yeah, because you always have a never-ending list of stuff to get done, which is great, isn't it? At least you've got some stuff to do, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, if anybody's unaware of you, you own Louder Than War, you're a musician, you're a journalist, you're best known as, a bass player for Membranes, a musical historian, and all the TV work that you do. So you've got many feathers to your bow, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, but I just see them as being all different aspects of the same thing, really, just different facets of the diamond.
Yeah.
It's if you write music, play music, you can talk about music, you can write music, you can write about music, you can talk about it. It's all the same things, isn't it? So I don't see they're mutually exclusive of each other, really.
Well, I did have a nosy as well, and now you're a doctor as well. I had a nosy on.
Yeah. Well, mate. Yeah. Well, I went to Stafford Poly. And after 43 years, they finally gave me my degree. So I got kicked out there in about 1980, but 43 years later, it's a sign of my current respectability.
Yeah, I found that really interesting. It must be kind of like nice in a way. How did the news how did the news reach you? And was it a surprise anyway, that kind of stuff? All these.
Yeah. Well, I was doing like a little project with them because they're the biggest gaming university in Britain. So we got this little computer game idea. Yeah. Which we put together, and there's kind of a green thing I've been working on, and we talk about that as well. And then they just gave me this doctorate out of the blue. It was out of the blue, yeah. They said, have you got any problem wearing a gown? That's how they introduced it to me. So wearing a gown was cool. It was like dressing up as a medieval kind of lord or something. It was quite funny, but it's a totally different place now. The guy that runs it, the head dean is a massive fan of post-punk, big music head. It's not like 1980 now, is it? When pop culture was the preserve of people 30 and under, whereas now it's all the way through society, isn't it? So being into punk in 1980 would obviously eventually at some point get you lobbed out of a place like that, whereas now it gets you a degree. And people do academic courses in punk rock, don't they? Yeah.
It is weird when you look back to particularly when I was a kid, when I did HND media at school, and they tried to stick loads of different things together to make it worthy of a course, I suppose. So they did film stuff, they did radio stuff, and they did all these other little things that I still use a lot of the radio stuff that I learned today. But it must be nicer being a young kid to have these options around you than when back in my day. Anyway, you can speak for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's good, isn't it? Because you learn the skills. But in a way, it's kind of good. I like the way we did it, where we just punk rock was basically saying anybody could do it, which of course that was a total misinterpretation. But that's our interpretation. So we just did a band because that's what you did. But we didn't know how to tune up. We put machine heads in a row. We didn't know scales or chords. Never plugged in an amp before to the first gig. We just went up, totally out of tune and played. And it was totally punk rock DIY, which in a way I kind of prefer that. And you just worked it out as you went along, basically on stage.
Dude,
I think you can learn too much. I think probably it's probably a good idea to learn how to play loads of songs if you work out how they get written. But on the other hand, there's something quite pure about just working out yourself. And a lot of people in my generation were like that, Pete Hook's like that. He can only play Pete Hook style bass. I don't think he knows any cover versions. None of us did.
No, and I'll just speak for myself. You can let us know, but we made as a band every mistake possible just from not having the experiences. And when you speak to new bands these days and you try and pass on some wisdom and pass on that kind of stuff, they do make you feel like you're being a bit daft sometimes, just by saying,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's just like it's a completely different world and a different landscape when you're as a creative like young person now or
No, I mean
person.
that's good, but I don't think there's actually a set way to make it anyway.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
is even making it the primary drive, isn't it? It's
yeah.
actually making stuff is more important than making it. I mean, it's nice. Of course, you make it makes your life a lot easier because you can survive and that. But it's not about you can't. It's really really difficult to make it, and there's no point making that your prime motivation for doing anything that's arty or whatever.
I see a lot of people like when you say make it, yeah, what does make it mean? Making a living out of music, that's the holy grail for a lot of people. But a lot of these young kids these days, when I'm going out to watch bands and stuff, they're taking themselves really seriously and worrying about what other bands are doing quite a lot. I tend to notice as well, which kind of like makes them, I don't know, they might be a bit jealous of that band over there that's got a playing a bigger version of the Manchester Academy than that band over there. And there's a lot of like looking over there rather than, just get back to basics, just write the tunes, just be as best you can and try and do some of that social stuff that everybody's supposed to do these days as well, I suppose.
It's a waste of time worrying about other bands, isn't it? Because it's not really at the end of the day, it ain't going to make any difference how big or small your band is. Somebody, you may be better, you may be pretty amazing, but you may be out of sync with the times.
Yeah.
You may have something that people don't get at that point in time. The more, maybe the other band's more mundane, but they manage to work out a more watered down way or version of it to get through. I mean, it's pointless, isn't it? It's pointless bothering about it. You can only do your thing, and that's all, isn't it?
And like when I'm talking to these bands as well, it's like who do I interview now? Oh, this guy. Oh, he used to be Killing Joke and with Pill drummer. What's it? The name's gone out of my head.
Martin Atkins.
Martin Atkins. Yeah, I thank you for that. I appreciate that. It went out of my head. The biggest bit of advice that he gave me to pass on to other people when I interviewed him were, the crowd, your crowd's not even going to be in the same city as you. Sometimes you need to get out there. You need to, not like, if you're a band from Manchester, you're not necessarily going to make it in Manchester. Look at bands like Drift that are doing really well in Europe now, and they don't sell out. They're selling bigger venues in the UK.
The last thing you want to be is a local band, just playing, just playing 6 times a year to your mates. You probably only half like you just go for the piss up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I do now, I suppose, is a laugh in it. But if you're kind of serious about what you're doing, you got an idea of what your music is, you've probably got more fans in Tokyo and Berlin than around the corner. I mean, that's what social media has done. It's changed the space, and you don't have to graft it out in the cavern anymore like the Beatles did.
Yeah, no, I'm still trying to get my head around this new world and just try and think we obviously cover as much as we can with our Jim, and that's just our way of just like giving back, I suppose, and just doing what we do. How do you feel owning a magazine yourself has changed over the last few years and being part of the, setting up you've got a manifesto and you've got louder than war, and it's this massive thing that supports a lot of people out there, not just music, poetry, everything, culture, just, how does it feel for you, and how has it changed over the years, that magazine thing?
Well, weirdly, it's like a digital fanzine. I'm almost back to where I started, but it's bigger, of course, because when I started doing the fanzine, I was in Blackpool. There's only 50 people into alternative music in Blackpool then, so you couldn't sell that many fanzines. Whereas now, with the website, you've got an international reach, which is great. So you're doing thousands of people every day reading stuff on it. But in a way, it's the motivation for doing it's the same. It's about, you're into new stuff, but also old stuff, and you're recalibrating it, and you're saying, that band that most people out there think it's a bit naff, they're actually quite genius. Check it out. Listen to it this way. So it doesn't really have a set way it has to be. Lots of people write for it, and they all have different reasons why they write for it. So it's a lot of live reviews. The Prodigy was on there this week, and also there's a brand new band on at the same time. I don't think music can be one thing all at once. It's not just new bands. It's not just old bands. It's about music that captivates you in that moment in time, and that's all it can ever be.
It's got to a stage for me personally where it's not I've turned into a bit of a manager, and that's what I didn't want to happen. If you know what I mean, I don't get time to listen to all the great music that comes in. I'm jealous of the people that are going out and doing all the live gigs when I'm just sat at home sorting all the boring manager bits out. It's got to. Did it ever feel like that for you at times?
Well, I suppose you have to do a lot of admin, don't you, just to stop all your stuff falling apart, isn't it? But that's like in any kind of world, isn't it? If you're in a band, you have to make sure your gear doesn't fall apart. On a website, you have to make sure it doesn't break. You have to email people all day. But that's the nature of doing things yourself, isn't it? You don't have an assistant, you don't have an office. It's just you, isn't it? Yeah. And that's quite good in a way, isn't it? Because you stand and fall on what you do yourself, isn't it?
You do that, and you make mistakes along the way. Like, since I read your manifesto, I thought we need a bit more of an identity, I think, and part of our identity is because we were kind of new, and when I first started, seeing what's going on over there at Louder Than War, I kind of like wanted to have a bit more of an identity, because it means something having an identity, doesn't it? People can relate to things more just by having something that's they can think about more than just seeing it's a music magazine. And mine was, don't be afraid of dropping a bollock.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, make mistakes and just, admit to them and own the mistakes and move on.
They're not necessarily mistakes, are they? They're just, you can only be in that moment of time. So something you're really into at one moment of time, you might not be into it a year later. So you just move on to the next thing, innit? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just running a magazine and having people that do stuff within the magazine as well. How have you seen, as particularly digital media, change over the years? Do you think I think it's quite a saturated industry, but there's a lot of passionate people doing it for the right reasons, that are trying to do the best with it, I feel now, rather than people just having a website that did just, I don't know, just like a hobby type of thing. There's more people be quite serious about digital journalism and helping the new people have a voice and that kind of stuff, which I know you guys do. We're definitely trying to do that as well. But how do you see the landscape of that changing as we look forward into 2024?
I think all the major changes in this current period are in place now, aren't they? So I think one of the interesting changes is that everybody, say if we talk about music media, every band is its own media, isn't it? So bands that don't get written about anywhere, it's not a big deal anymore. They don't need to get written about, because their Facebook page and their website is their own media. Often they're bigger than most of the medias are. They got their 1 million followers and they deal directly with them. That's a big change. In the 70s, if you got a few slag offs in the music papers, your career was knackered. But now you can actually exist on your own. You dictate your own terms, media terms. I think the other thing is writing is still important, but not as it was, because people can hear stuff and can see stuff. YouTube clips, Spotify, streaming. It's all very, very available, isn't it? So when you write about music, what are you writing about? What is your role? Is it framing it? Is you put it in a certain place and time? Or is, I think, like writers, maybe the job's more, it's different. You write about stuff, but you also connect stuff. You're a cultural catalyst. You go in a room and you speak to the bands. You go to the room, you speak to them after and go, why don't you speak to this person, to that person? I know this person over here. So you can't. So you document, but you're also a catalyst. I think that's what journalists should do now, music journalists.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you can help people, but sometimes you don't see where the path goes, do you? You can pass on those kind of messages when you speak to bands backstage for a little bit, or you're just out for a beer and there's one of them out and you think, oh, you're that band, and then you have a chat with them, and sometimes you don't see how far that advice goes, but it's definitely worthwhile passing on the knowledge if you.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of things I've managed to connect up to over the years. Yeah. It's about making things happen, and I think that's kind of a role that's a role we like to think we do it Louder Than War. We make things happen. We don't just sit on the edge of things, bitching about stuff. We like to get right in there and make something happen. If there's a band that we're really into, we write about it to so people can find out about them. But we think, well, why don't you go and speak to this label here? They're looking for bands, or why don't so in a way, yeah, I think it's a catalytic thing as well. You're trying to start the revolution every day.
You are, you are. It can. I don't know. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm always down on what I do a little bit. I feel like I can always do better. So in a way, I'm just glad that I'm speaking to you. I know now I've had Nigel Carr, your co-owner and editor of the magazine as well. That I've had him on the show before, and he's always open for advice and that kind of stuff. And I kind of look up to yours, being like the big boys. You've been around a lot longer. You know the score more. It's kind of like a look up to you guys. Are you aware of like your stance within the industry itself?
No, because we don't really look at it like that.
Yeah.
It's we're happy that loads of people read the site, and we're happy that we can make a difference, but we don't think we're above anybody else.
No.
I see all media as patchwork now, and it's not 4 music papers and John Peel. It's 100 websites, 100 podcasts, online digital radio stations, a little bit of Six Music in there. It's like so many different things, and within that net, it will catch some of the little fish. So it's not like if you miss the 4 papers in John Peel, no one's going to know you exist. There's always going to be another website that can write about you. There's always going to be a podcast that could talk about you. So I see it's just part of all that community of people who like to document, but also like to make things happen. I don't think we're better or worse than anybody else. I mean, we like the people we work with. We have a very good team of people, but we're not. It's what you do is important as well. It's all important, isn't it? It's kind of reflecting stuff that's out there and turning people onto stuff. That's what we all do, isn't it? Whether it's one person or 10,000, it's all important, isn't it?
Yeah, well, as you say yourself, I listed all your accolades and what you've done throughout your career and that kind of stuff, and I can see that there's a link to it all. As Louder Than War, being a journalist, being in music, the TV work that you do. Now, do you know some of the TV stuff that you've done, John? Do you know like the look back programs? I'm always a bit fascinated by them. Do you know like when somebody describes something that happened in the 80s on the telly and they're like, and it's like they've remembered it it's like they've just seen it and then they're describing it for the first time. How is that like set up as a thing for you as one of those people on those TV programs? Is it as set up as what it looks sometimes, or is it genuine reactions to your memories of these things?
Pretty genuine. I mean, they'll send you a list of most of the videos or whatever the song's going to talk about, but you never get around to watching them because you're always doing other stuff. Yeah. But I've got a really good memory. I've got a photographic memory. I can remember so much stuff. So it's doesn't. I can wing it really easily, because if you show me a video of a pop song or any kind of bit of music from even from the 60s onwards, I would kind of know something about it. I'd have an opinion on it, and I know its cultural context. I would know most stuff. Although you do get occasionally you get one and you go, whoa, I don't remember this at all. But then I don't talk about it because I say, well, I can't talk about that. Yeah. I don't talk about everything, So it's about, say, 2/3, and the other third is say that's not my thing. I don't know much about that, because they're interviewing loads of people. They don't need everybody to talk about everything, So you just talk about the ones you got an opinion on or an idea about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just thanks for that. I just wouldn't mind a little bit behind the scenes of those, because I do watch a lot of them. I love those type of programs. They're looking back in the 80s or the 90s or the 70s, whatever it may be. Those type of programs, and it's Christmas time coming up, and there'll be a few more coming up, won't there? Have you done any recently?
I've done a couple, yeah, but do you know what? I don't really watch the telly that much because I'm usually out and about. Right. Okay. So when I'm on, I don't really know when I'm on. It's only because you see on Twitter it pings up. So I saw you on the telly last night. That's kind of when I know that I've been on the telly and things. I mean, there's loads of great telly, but I'm just doing other stuff. I'm either out of gigs, I'm writing, or I'm just doing stuff. I'm always doing stuff. I do stuff all day long, so I don't really have sitting on the sofa time watching telly. I mean, I suppose it should for mental health, but it's not my thing. I like to be doing stuff instead. I'm more those. I like creating things instead of I like to be the one that's doing the thing instead of watching it. Even if I'm on the telly, in fact, watching yourself on telly is the worst, isn't it? Because God, what are you saying?
I think it's great. And you're always doing stuff, and you said you're always writing. You've just brought out a brand new book as well that we must talk about: The Art of Darkness, The History of a Goth. Now, I never personally had much to do with that kind of side of the music industry, the goth scene at all. For me, it were a couple of kids at school who had black hair and a Colt t-shirt, something like that. It wasn't like a part of the music industry that I had any kind of like affiliation with. So when I saw the book, I thought, and just looked at all the people you've interviewed inside the book, I just thought, just talk us through the inspiration of, wanting to, delve into that side of the music industry.
I think it's pretty good that it's not your thing, I think there's so much music out there, anybody can find their space, Well, I think a lot of people like a lot of different things at the same time, and also there's lots of crossovers. So even though they weren't really a goth band, Joy Division were a massive influence on the goth scene, like musically, and what Ian Curtis brought to it with his poetic lyrics and his voice. And you're probably a Joy Division fan, it's part of the Manchester thing and it's part of our DNA, Chameleons, not strictly a goth band, but a lot of goths used to like them. They're in the book. You'd probably be surprised at The Cure, they're in there. There's probably a few things you probably would like a bit, or a few songs by they're actually in the book. It's not like everybody in that world had to be a goth to like that music and the culture either, I mean, when I've been doing events, it's a few, every night it's half it's kind of goths and the other half's just music heads who are people like me who like lots of different music. I mean, I like music, I like African music, I like dub music, I like electronic music, I like punk, I like rock and roll, I like goth, I like Aphex Twin, I like pop music. I mean, I'm a music head, I like lots of different types of music, and not exclusive. But I suppose so glam to punk to goth was definitely a space I inhabited in that time. So it's kind of more like home turf for me writing about that stuff. But then I love the Mondays and the Roses as well, So it's when you're a music head, you're pretty open. You're into stuff like that. I don't get those people who only like 8 bands and they're loyal, they're dogged. They support the bands like third division football clubs through thick and thin, which is nice when they do that. It's nice when you're in the band because it keeps you going in that. But I like so many different things. I can't understand only liking a few things. Listen to the same thing over and over would drive me mad. Yeah.
I think I'm in that camp, John. I think I am.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been that experimental with music too much. And what's great about RGM is I get sent some mad stuff that I've missed out. I've been closed-minded to some music through the years as well, and it's that too, isn't it? Sometimes.
On the other hand, you gotta like what you like. You can't make yourself like things, So you have to follow your own instincts. But I like to keep an open mind. I like to be open-minded about life. Really, you just. Not doing the same things over and over again. But, we're all different, aren't we? The way we react to the world that's what makes it fascinating, isn't it? Everybody's got a different aspect, a different way of reacting to culture. None of it's wrong and none of it's right, is it? When people state their opinion as a fact, it always makes you laugh that. This band is really shit, fact. No, you don't like them, fact. that's opinion. It's not a fact. Some pop stuff's on the telly and people get mad about it. People get mad about X Factor. Who cares? Don't watch it. It's not important. It's not for us, is it? It's for other people, isn't it? I've no interest in it at all.
Well, I think I first came across John Robb when you were the first person to interview Nirvana in the UK, I think, many years ago. And in your new book, The Art of Darkness, there's a link in the description of this podcast if you fancy, grabbing it for Christmas or buying it for yourself, whatever. Just the amount of people that you've interviewed in there: Nick Cave, Killing Joke, Johnny Marr, The Cure. Having interviewed all these different people through the years, do you see any kind of like common themes with the people that have made it in the music industry and the big people that have followed through these interviews that you've had with these amazing people?
Probably in the context of that book, the people take music really seriously. They live the life. They're in that. They inhabit that world. They don't just turn up once a week to rehearsal and put on their outfits. They're like that all day long. It's 24/7. I think, clothes, music, the whole equation, it's cultural. It's got a whole cultural backstory, books, films, everything. There could be influences into it and also influenced by it as well. I think that's true of all kind of musics, but it's not something you just switch on and switch off. I think it's always in there. They're always creating, and also people work hard. There was always that thing when I was a kid when the idea of being a band was better than getting a job. It's better than getting a job you didn't like, but it was harder work most jobs. You have to be on it all day long, which is, but at least you're on something you like doing, and that was important. But the graft is key, I think. There's no such thing as genius, but there's an awful lot. There's people who are good at what they're doing, but have to graft to get to the nuggets of truth. Yeah.
What process do you follow when interviewing a band? Is there a set way that you go about it, or do you do it different for different people, or how do you go about,
well, you have to know about them a bit, but also the most important thing is to get a rapport and trust. And sometimes you've only got 30 seconds to get that. So you just have to find that space very, very quickly. Well, I don't think there's even a technique. I don't even know what the technique is, but I would say 95% of the interviews I've done, I managed to get that level of trust very, very quickly. So yeah, so that really helps. If somebody doesn't like you, doesn't trust you, you won't get an interview. You just get monosyllabic answers. But if somebody trusts another human being, then you'll get the good stuff, and that's a two-way process. If they're starting to get into areas that perhaps they shouldn't be, you've got to guide them back out again, so you got to look after people. Some people, some musicians can be quite vulnerable people as well, so yes. But then there's all different ways of doing interviews. You could be the combat interview where you just pile in and start really going at the person to test them out. That was a very 70s technique. People did that, didn't they? Or you could do my least favourite kind of interview when somebody turns up with a clipboard of questions and goes down them all one by one. And it's not a conversation, is it? It's just like, you just start to really riff on something. Then they ask you something completely different, like they have no interest in what the answer is, which I prefer conversation. I think conversation is the best kind of interview.
No, I definitely agree. And I found, particularly post COVID, when I started doing a lot more Zoom interviews, because Zoom has its positives, it has its negatives, doesn't it? It's really convenient to get somebody that's in a different part of the country and have that chat with them straight away. You don't have to travel, all that kind of stuff, the cost of it all. Zoom has really helped me, get the people I want to have a conversation with on the podcast. How do you feel about doing things remotely these days? And just because you mentioned right at the beginning there, getting their trust and that kind of stuff, so it's harder when you're not there in real life as well. And is there a different and stuff?
Well, you still have to get the trust in the Zoom, but I know what you mean. It's a bit more clinical. It's two-dimensional, obviously. I mean, that's the thing about communication. It's not just words, is it? It's because we're animals. It's all the senses in it. It's like it's the energy connection in it. It's so many things in there that if you meet somebody in real life, is a very different experience of talking into your phone like this, So, but it doesn't mean it's completely dead. And also the advantage of it is most interviews you can't really get because you don't live in the same country as somebody, So by Zooms you can get close to getting a very good interview with somebody at the other side of the world, So you can get a lot of good stuff in a slightly oblique kind of way. Yeah.
Is there anybody you still got on your list that I need to have a chat with those people? Is there anybody that's still there that you've not?
Well, even with the book, would have been nice to get Robert Smith again. But I've done Robert Smith before from The Cure, and it was cool because he's from Blackpool when he was a kid, so we had a Blackpool conversation. So that was nice. I don't think he meets many people from Blackpool, so that was our little rapport moment. Susie would have been good for the book because she's so iconic, and I like those people who do music who are really conceptual. They're completely in their own worlds, and those people are really fascinating. What they look like, how they conduct themselves. The whole thing is like a work of art. It's not just the music. Yeah, there's kind of a lot of people. I have a list. Just every now and then I wait. I like people who are interested and like ideas. It doesn't even have to be music. There's people beyond music I'm interested in as well. I tell you who's really interesting. Grimes, the singer, the pop singer. She went out with Elon Musk for a bit, which is a bit weird.
Oh, yeah.
But her interviews are great because she talks a lot about AI, computer tech, quite esoteric ideas. A bit like a Bowie interview. They wouldn't even talk about the record. They would talk about everything else that's really interesting and forget their own record. I like those kind of people. I think I like to come away from an interview where I feel, whoa, you feel enlivened and empowered by ideas. Ideas are more exciting than anything, aren't they?
I've recently read Elon Musk's book, and it talks about his relationship with Grimes and up and down and that kind of stuff, and that's their private life. But Elon Musk as a person, as a personality, he's just come up in conversation. What's your thoughts on what he's trying to do to the world?
I think Grimes is far smarter than Elon Musk. It must be quite boring for her to go out with him. He's not an innovative inventor at all, is he? He's a rich kid. He's from a diamonds family in South Africa who just buys other people's ideas and sticks his name on them, doesn't he? He's never invented anything, has he? He made all his money out of PayPal, which was already going. He just bought it. I mean, he's good at turning, at that point in time, he's good at turning multi-million-dollar businesses into multi-billion-dollar businesses. There's skill there, I guess. But he didn't invent electric cars. He didn't invent PayPal. He didn't invent anything. He's got this whole image of being an innovator. He's just blagged the whole thing, hasn't he? But he can afford to blag it all because he's loaded, isn't he? So
I read Steve Jobs' book, and he's a similar kind of person where he doesn't physically make stuff. He uses other people's ideas and makes that into $1 billion companies.
I think there's a skill to that, isn't it? Because you know where the action is. And luckily, because you're from rich parents, you can afford to buy it all up.
Do you think you'd be a different person if you had rich parents?
I think everybody would be, because the possibilities are endless, aren't they? You can afford to do stuff. I mean, I'm sure you have ideas of what you would like to do or what would be a cool thing to do, and you can't do it because you're hampered by the amount of money you have, or the possibilities you have, or the people you know. Because once you've got a really big business up and running, because you have the money to do it, everybody else is loaded and stuff. So you kind of know all the other people to go to. All the people come to you. That's the other thing, isn't it? It's a lot easier to be Elon Musk in his mansion with his $1 billion bank account, getting things off the ground, than it is to be like a kid on the back end of Salford in an estate who's probably 100 times smarter, would never get a chance to do anything, because the way our society is constructed, it's completely fucked up way of society, isn't it? But all the smart people, just normal kids, they're locked out. They don't get a chance. It's all wrong. It's all upside down, isn't it? Like you see endless articles about how smart the royal family are, and they're probably the most stupid people in Britain, aren't they? There's nothing remarkable about them at all, is there? The remarkable people are the people, like I say, some 17-year-old kid in Salford or an estate is way smarter than any of these people, but can't get out of that estate because the way our society is constructed. It's one of the primary things that makes the country fucked up.
I didn't mind that he bought X though, and changed Twitter to X. I think when you look at the social media platforms and how much influence they have on politics and that kind of stuff, and particularly voting, and how much negative impacts it can have or potentially have, it could be a nightmare. But it looks like it's going down the route of it's a bit more regulated, like Wikipedia, where the community makes a decision on what's classed as a fact or not, and that kind of stuff. I see good things there that he's trying to do through X.
No, he's got exactly the same problems they had before, because he doesn't know what to ban, then he unbans it, and then and it's as somebody who's a very liberal person, I like the way that everyone's got a voice, but I can see how it's very detrimental, isn't it? You can see really bad ideas catching fire from Twitter, but what do? Do you regulate it or do you not regulate it? This is the argument of our time, isn't it? So I don't think he hasn't got a clue what he's doing. He's losing money hand over foot. I mean, it could collapse at any point, Twitter. I think he's made a complete mess of it. I mean, the guy that ran it before, Jack, oh God, his second name's got on there, but he was clever, and he had a concept of what he's doing, but he got out because of this problem. It's a conundrum, isn't it? Because the guy ran it before, is it Jack Delaney? I can't remember his name, but his idea was a free-form platform. You can have any opinion you want. But of course, you get to a point where it's full of fascists, So it's, if Twitter had been around the 1930s, Hitler would have been on that before anything else, So it's, by giving everybody a voice, it doesn't necessarily get the outcome that you want. That's the problem. And I don't know how Elon Musk thought he could navigate his way through that problem. Because if you start banning everybody, it's freedom, isn't it? But if you start letting everyone speak, then you turn up. It doesn't end. It's just there's so many permutations. You just don't know what's going to happen next. It's a really crazy thing to buy into. And he's lost a fortune on it so far, hasn't he?
It's fascinating. Do you think Hitler would be on? What a stupid question! I don't know why I'm going with this. Like on Instagram, he won't be on Instagram, would it? I think he'd be. He'd be on
100%.
TikTok, wouldn't it?
No, 100% he'd be on Instagram because Instagram's about what you look like, and they're goose stepping in their Hugo Boss suits, weren't they? They were all about the look, weren't they? I mean, in a way, you could argue they were the first of the modern era politicians, like stage managed rallies. Yeah. Everyone's got like really smart clothes on. It looks really good. They had, people making films that make them look like superheroes. It was all, it's a very modern media fix they were doing. They would have been all over the socials. Every day you get a picture of Hitler and he's like some like really well made outfits sat there holding a baby or patting a deer on the head, to give him a softer, warmer glow, while he's doing all the evil stuff in the background.
I like speaking to you, John. I always think I've not thought things through enough when I speak to you.
It's only my opinion. I'm not saying it's right.
I just like how direct you are with that kind of stuff. I appreciate it. It's nice. So outspoken person. You've got your own opinions. Perfect for a rock and roll spoken word tour that you've got coming up, mate, as well. So how do you prepare for going on tour, and what's the format like for your new tour? Talk us through a bit of that.
Yeah, well, this year I've done about 40 book dates with Goth Book, and they've gone really well. It's always they always sell out, so it's got really good crowds and that. So I just mentioned somebody, Phil Jones actually manages John Cooper Clarke, said these going really well. Do you want what about getting some dates where I just go around, talk about my life and music, and with some really good tangents. So I could talk about the Nirvana thing, going interview them first and staying with them in New York for a few days, and or I could talk about the Roses and the Mondays sing in Manchester. And I mean, I got endless music stories because I've been to so many things, seen stuff firsthand, and got some really good angles on it. He said, "Well, that's really good. I'll book you about 5." And he came back with about 30. So it'd just be mainly most of it me talk about my life and music, lots of anecdotes about lots of different things. A couple of them might have some special guests. There's a few people in different towns said, "Oh, I'll come down to that and we can have a chat on stage." So there may be a two-way in conversation where we speak to each other. Somebody have a band, in like Sheffield or Birmingham may come down and we do that as well. Or we may just do two. We have the conversation then and I'll do my talk afterwards. There will be surprises and things. But it'll be a night of talk about music and culture and beyond, really. Because, I mean, I could actually go off on a tangent about the universe because I know all the scientists from the CERN project, and that's a pretty interesting thing, isn't it? Talking about how the universe actually goes on forever, space goes on forever, and there's multiverses, millions, trillions of universes, and all that complete mad headfuck stuff, which is utterly fascinating, isn't it? But I was getting it firsthand off all these scientists I knew who worked for the CERN project. So I kind of knew stuff that was about 5 years ahead for quite a bit of time. I need to have a little catch up with those guys to see where their theories are up to. And maybe I'll roll into Southampton. I'll get Chris Packham to come down and we'll do a nature one, because I'm good mates with Chris because he's a massive punk, So he'd be sat there trying to talk about obscure punk records, and I'd be there trying to talk about obscure birds.
Are they lining Chris up to be the next to take over?
Attenborough,
yeah. Do you think?
Yeah. He's like the radical. He's the radical Attenborough because Chris is an old punk, so he doesn't really want to be a national treasure. He still has the punk gene in there. He likes to cause trouble. That's a punk thing. But I think I do say to him he's a national treasure and he hates that, but I think he's becoming one. Although he's polarizing, isn't he? Because all those people who like walking around the countryside and shooting things from a mile away, which are weirdos, borderline psychopaths, they all hate him, don't they? But, if that's the kind of people that hate you, you're doing the right thing, innit? He's telling me about his house. People always setting fire to him, bits of his house, or chucking homemade bombs into his garden and doing like loads of stuff. He gets loads of bad shit goes on, because they're trying to shut him up, aren't they? Trying to scare him off and that. Because apparently hunting is a right, which is kind of weird. Because I always thought, how come the countryside you can gallop around and rip a fox to pieces, but if you were in a city, and but a gang of kids on bicycles chased a cat around and ripped it in half. They'd all get put in jail, wouldn't they? So I don't understand how it's okay if you're a magistrate to kill something. If you're a normal person, it isn't. I mean, personally, I'd have neither, but you can't have one or the other.
Definitely, it's definitely something to think about. What do you do? Is fox hunting still banned?
It's what?
Fox hunting still banned?
It is, yeah, but they do it, don't they? Because they're the magistrates, so they do.
And
the cops turn a blind eye. They're meant to do a drag hunt, aren't they? Where they drag the scent of a fox around, and they run around. But what they actually do is hunting foxes. It goes on all the time, doesn't it? So they're just weirdos. Yeah.
Just by having this, 40-minute chat with you today, I think the tour's sounding like it's going to be amazing. So there's no real set structure to it. It's just going to be stories from life, and you've got millions of those, and then some surprises as well.
Yeah, millions of surprises. But there will be a set list. Yeah, I'll have a little set list. And I mean, it's funny because I know some comedians. I know Stuart Lee really well. And I always thought Stuart Lee did off the top of his head, but he actually learns the set. He doesn't do tangents. I was quite impressed by that. I was thinking, how can you learn 2 hours of stuff,
I went to see him at Lowry last year.
I was there. It was great. Yeah.
You never know with comedians, the callbacks that they do, how set up they are, and how or have they really forgotten they come back? But they've always got it nailed on it. They know exactly what they're doing. It's impressive.
He's amazing, and I mean he does do little tangents, and he does that. He did that. Were you there that night when he did the 20-minute story? And some bloke went out for a piss, and he goes, "Where you going, mate? It's taken me 20 minutes to get to the end of this, and we're just about to get to the punchline, and you don't care about my art at all, and you're just leaving."
Yeah,
and it's really funny because in real life, because it's an act, isn't it? Because Stuart Lee on stage plays the part of this kind of really grumpy character, but in real life, he's not really like that at all. I mean, he's another massive music head. He's really sweet. And he's dead into his music and that. So I sometimes go and say hello at the merch desk, and it's really funny because people going up there looking a bit scared, like he's going to bite their head off, but he's not like that, But he is amazing, isn't he? I think, but the way he does is great. And I did an interview with him where he told me about the art of comedy. He really studies it. So he's really into music hall from the 1920s and 30s. He buys up old scripts. So a lot of his jokes are based on quite. It's like the art of comedy, So he will take a 1920s rambling, really well constructed musical joke, and just kind of do it in modern style, So it's very, very clever, But my thing is more different than that. My thing will be because I'm actually quite good at doing stuff off the top of my head. But I mean, I'd have a structure, but I would go off at tangents and circle back in again. Yeah.
So what is there? There's going to be a link in the description of this podcast for the tour tickets, of course. There's a link in there for the book. John, as always, we really appreciate your time, mate. Is there a message that you'd leave the people that are hovering over the link that haven't pressed it for your tour yet? Is there anything you can entice them in and just say, just fucking press it?
Yeah, just fucking press it. We'll have a good time. I mean, just come to the gig and just hang out. We'll do the thing, then afterwards we'll just sit there for hours, just chatting amongst ourselves. Anyway,
John, mate, as always, I look up to you. I think you're great, and thanks for joining us today for an episode of the podcast. It's very much appreciated. John Robb, thanks for joining us today, mate. Nice one.
Thank you very much. Okay.